I totally digress, but my sister was a mascot in college. She studies she studied acting. So the big joke was this was her first paid gig, and she went, and one time as she was mascotting, she did a cartwheel,
Cartwheel?
and the head came off.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so the whoever she was working with, dramatically, three of them ran onto the field and like put the hat back, and she was hiding in so nobody would see who she was.
Wait. Her head went below, like,
It fell off.
so
It like rolled away.
I know, but her human head,
Oh,
she went down
yeah,
inside.
like turtled.
So to the kids, it looked like a headless. What was the mascot?
Oh gosh, I don't know, and now I feel horrible that I don't know, but I
Either way, the idea of a headless mascot with no human head underneath, and the kids just like.
and action.
Welcome to Leading Change. I'm your host, Adam Christie. Oh, people, I am so excited about this. We have an incredibly impressive CEO with us today. She's 29 years old. It's kind of unbelievable. Makes me wonder, what am I doing with my life? She is the CEO of Matchbox Virtual Media, which is an organization that works with companies to produce virtual event experiences. Please welcome, I'm going to try this, Arianna Rehak.
Yes, that is a 9 on 10 on name pronunciation.
Hey, I'll take a 9. Way better than what I got in school, so I am very happy with that. Thanks so much for joining us today.
I'm really happy to be here.
So tell us, what made you start Matchbox Virtual?
So my story starts a few years back, and I would say the reason for starting it was kind of unique. It wasn't I want to start a business. It was I'm really passionate about this thing, and this is the way to bring it into the world. For a little bit of context of what that thing is, I was leading an organization previous to Matchbox that was an online community, and so the way that the community was growing over time, we had this community platform, but then we'd start to do these masterminds. So we'd bring together, 10 people in the community who were similar in that they were strategic thinkers and, wanted to talk to each other. But they represented very different levels of their organization. And so thought and problem solved very differently. So we would do these masterminds, and people would bring challenges they were facing, and the group was collectively workshopping solutions. And so in one of these meetings, I recorded the conversation just out of curiosity. And when I went back to watch it, I just opened up a Word document and I started writing problems identified, solutions identified. And that 1 hour conversation led to, 6 pages of really, really good notes. And, one of the things I realized is that because they were working together, the solutions that were coming out of it were really robust. And so we started to look for ways to repurpose those ideas and concepts, so it was an online community and a digital publication. So we were taking pieces and publishing them in the publication. And it kind of sparked this absolute obsession with collective knowledge, the idea that you bring a group together and they're going to come out with something better than any individual could if you facilitate the right process. So that this evolution of thought kind of led to this whole system of a virtual event experience, basically designed to do this on a large scale. So that's the thing that I wanted to bring into the world. So I started Matchbox at first to really hone in on this methodology and start working with other communities.
So how old is the company?
So we are about 2.5 years old. So we were doing this about a year before the pandemic hit. And so, yeah, I mean, we were definitely in the right thing at the right time. Previous to COVID, we were honing in on this methodology of a very specific type of virtual event experience. And then all of a sudden our inbox was blowing up with questions about, we primarily work with associations. So it's member-based organizations. A lot of them do annual conferences and meetings. And so they needed to figure out how to bring those online. So our inbox was blowing up with, hey, in a month we have this conference that we're planning. We need to bring it online. We have no idea what to do. So we scaled pretty significantly. I mean, to give you an idea, we were a team of 5, and now we're a team of about 50. And so this whole year, well, year and a half of the pandemic was basically responding to the demand that appeared out of nowhere, basically.
So are you worried about post-pandemic, if you'll see it taper off?
I'm honestly really excited because the type of work that we were doing pre-pandemic was this deep problem solving. So we were being brought in, for instance, we did this whole initiative with CPA associations because their profession is undergoing a really significant workforce crisis because AI is just fundamentally changing what it means to be a CPA. And so they brought us in for this really big change management event. So it's basically bringing their members together to get a feel for how what they're thinking about the future, what they think the skills will be required for the digital age. And so we were part of this like deep process to understand, how to guide their members into the future and what sort of skills and conversations that they should be encouraging with their member base. So that was the type of deep work and deep problem solving we were doing. And so pandemic, it was a lot of, I don't want to say band-aids per se, but it was, we need to bring this conference online and a lot of events that looked very similar. So to me, the future of what we're doing is going to be this problem solving again. Like we're working on an event actually with Amazon, where one of their departments, their staff is dispersed. It's about 200 people on a specific team. And so the event is about employee engagement. So it is a one-day event designed to catalyze a community kind of cross-pollination. The mission of that department is really powerful. And so this event is also about people realizing the why purpose of the work that they do. So it's a very specific type of community interaction that we're trying to catalyze. So I think the work is going to be different moving forward, but people are so much more open to the digital now because of the last year and a half.
So you're saying that your company will evolve, it will have to?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, just on a trend line of the amount of demand that we had before, fewer events are being brought online. Just straight math.
Gotcha. When you were a little kid, what did you wanna be when you got older? Were you like, I think I wanna be in a company called Matchbox."
When I was 3 years old, I wanted to be a bumblebee. To be fair, I will say when I was 7, I had my first business venture. It was a stand outside of my house called Rent It, and I basically took out all my markers and stencils and whatever and displayed it and rented out my art supplies. So that was business number one. I made $1.15, but the dollar was from a neighborhood girl who was a few years older than me who thought it was adorable, so she gave me $1. So my mom made me give it back. She's like, "This is not hard-earned cash. Go, you need to learn. You need to work the hard way." So, and I had various stories like that growing up. So I think nobody was surprised at the direction I'm taking.
So, when did you decide you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
I still don't even self-identify that way. I
Mhm.
really, if somebody had given me a salary to do what I'm doing, and given me full control, I guess I should say, I'd be happy to do it. In this particular case, doing this through starting a company was the way to bring it into the world. The part then that happened was I deeply fell in love with that company because as we've been growing our team, we've just attracted these absolutely amazing people. And I looked for very specific traits. At first, I was doing the hiring, and then others on the team have really carried the culture forward, so it's very consistent. But we look for people whose faces light up when we talk about making the world a better place. And so you have the people on the team who really care, who are very creative, And in the work we're doing, we're trying to figure out, it's idealistic, but we're trying to figure out how to marry the work that people are doing with the things that give them energy. And when you have that aligned very well, it's very powerful. So yeah, so that is I almost see, because my background is in online community management, so I almost see the growth of the team as building it, because we're remote. We've been remote, but we're always going to be remote. I found building the staff almost like running an online community.
Are you more likely to go public or be acquired, do you think?
No, 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 no.
No.
I no, definitely never going public. We also we did not want any outside financial investment. We were very lucky to be able to fund our growth through revenue, but what we're doing is very community oriented, and so just really didn't want a stakeholder that was only financial. So not sure what the future holds in terms of the next few years, but I can tell you for sure that we will never go public.
Now, do you own 100% or do you have a partner?
There are 7 shareholders of Matchbox total. 4 of them are self-identify as co-founders on the team.
Just curious, are your parents part of that?
No,
Oh, man. I bet they were like, can we get in on this? And you're like, Mom, you took away my dollar. All right. Do you remember that?
they wish they had.
Yeah. So what would you say? I mean, you talked about culture. You talked about, the culture in your company. How would you describe the culture at Matchbox?
So I would say it comes from that first. So the obsession I talked about of collective knowledge. One of our, I would say, most unusual traits is a very deep belief in co-creation. So one of the ways we're structured internally, as much as possible, we have people working in teams of 3. And that team is held accountable to outcome. So very often we don't even know the division of labor among those 3. They are deciding amongst themselves. But they're working as a unit. And so that actually proved to be really powerful. For starters, on the management side, they were much more independent than if they had been working individually. But also their output, we were seeing the output was just so much stronger when they were put into teams. So that approach has played out in different ways. We were doing, for instance, these design sessions, these weekly collaborative innovation sessions where anyone on the team could participate. And it's this whole process of, we'd bring forth a challenge, the group would ideate together, and then we'd hone in on a few of the ideas that emerged and put people in groups to build off of them. And so, this was something we were doing for the cross-pollination, but we just had all these incredible ideas that were emerging. That became the hard part, is what do we practically do with this 16-page document of these really good ideas. So it's very meta, because in honing in on this design session, that then became something that we started to do for clients. So in a way, we're our own test subjects.
So, could you could you define for us older folk what is meta? How do you define meta?
I was like, is he going to ask design session, co-create? Which word is going to be
I was
the
like,
problem word?
Meta. 4-letter word
So
threw me.
meta is almost like it's like an inception. It's like so the
We just used a longer word to define a shorter word, and I don't know that
You
either.
didn't see the movie Inception?
I saw it, but I can't figure out how that works with your company.
Okay, so basically, what I'm trying to get across by saying that it was meta is that we were doing a design session and practicing a design session, but we were also, one of the reasons for doing that is because it was product development, because that then became a process that we started to do with our clients. So if let's say, try to give another example of meta, it's almost like the philosophical layer. I don't know. I don't know how to go deeper with it. You have to watch Inception.
I will, and I'll be thinking about how this relates. Um, okay, so what's the hardest part about having a culture that you don't actually see people, face well, not face you obviously see each other face to face, but in person? What are the difficulties of not being able to see each other in person?
So I would say that one of our core values is inclusion, and it's very hard because we do a lot of things that are optional to attend. So, for example, every Friday we do a huddle at the end of the day. It's an hour, and it's like activities and kind of totally on the social side. And it's so much harder to see the people who choose not to attend those things, and to understand why. Is there something in what we're doing that there's a reason why people have chosen not to engage with it? Is it their workloads that are super heavy? That was definitely one thing. As we were scaling, we would bring someone on for a certain role, and then we'd blink and suddenly they had a 60-hour work week, and it was very hard to see what was going on. So I would argue that that's been the hardest part, is really keeping a constant beat on how people are doing.
And how do you do that?
You ask, you ask, you pay attention to certain signs. We One thing we do every 6 months or so is we'll send out a survey, and one of the questions that we ask, what is your favorite part of the work that you're doing? One of the questions we ask is, what do you hate doing? Like, what do you wish you could just snap your fingers and never have to do again? And by policy, we take that list and really try and remove those things. Interestingly, a lot of the time it's manual work. It's things that could be and should be automated in some way. And so it's actually really good feedback for us to know that.
So you're the CEO, you are the leader. How would you define leadership?
I would have trouble defining it generally because I think that people have different styles. So there are four of us co-founders, and we are very different leaders. And we find that in certain circumstances, one is better for a situation than the other. As far as my leadership style goes, it is definitely on the cheerleader side. I would say that I am very good at building enthusiasm, and so the thing that I need to enthusiasm and momentum, and so the thing that I need to constantly check in myself is that what I'm building people up for is moving in a synchronous direction. That it is about where we're going. It's about the purpose of who we are and why we're here. The other thing is, as our company grew, my job became more about leading the leaders. We all of a sudden had this management level, or management layer, and each of those managers having people report to them. So that became actually in some ways a completely different skill, to help support them in supporting others rather than doing so directly. Because the more layers you have, the bigger of a deal it is for, let's say, me to intervene and have a conversation with someone. Oftentimes, it really should be their direct report.
And how many direct reports directly report to you?
So our full management team is 9 people, and so technically they're all reporting to me.
It seems like a lot for a company of 50. Why did you structure it like that?
So actually, I just realized 8, and then minus me would be 7. Part of it was the co-founders who came on. We have 3 different units, I guess, within the full team. So one unit, for instance, is entirely technology. So we started building our own tech. So it's almost like a little company in the larger one that's doing that. So they have their own kind of management. And then we have a production team that's on it, that's working as a unit, and we have a operations team that's working. So it's just kind of the complexity of the different parts that make up a virtual conference is the reason for that.
So you have 4 co-founders.
Mhm.
What are you one of the 4, or you have 4 more?
So 4 total, including me.
4 total. Okay. So what makes you guys work well together?
So I think so. First of all, personality wise, I mean, we're friends, and we became friends. I knew each of them individually, but we all, as a unit, have become very strong. Our when we have our founders meetings, usually the first 10 minutes is just human to human catching up. And that's been an important part as we got busier and busier. We're like, wait a second, we need to take a moment and connect as people. But I think one of the main reasons why we're very strong as a team is because we all have a natural time sense, like how far into the future we're thinking and solving. On a spectrum, we're all at very different in different places. So we have somebody who's very much in the now, like he is problem solving what's happening today. For me, I'm a little more oriented 3 to 6 months out. And then the most extreme is 5 years out. And so having all of those perspectives in one, I think has been really valuable.
Now you're talking about that who's focusing on how many years out?
Yeah. So who is naturally, like, when they're looking at a trend line, where are they going to be focused on solving? Like how far out are they playing chess, basically?
How far out are you playing chess?
3 to 6 months.
Really? You're just looking at the short term, huh?
I'm a little bit more oriented. I'm a little bit more of a how orientation. So my so one of the four, for instance, who's a little further ahead than me time wise. We're a good team because he will give a conceptual, like, here's what we need to do, and I'm the one going, okay, here's how we do that, and here's how we get people excited about doing that.
Hmm. You mentioned cheerleading. Were you a cheerleader in school?
No.
I
No, but
was,
I think
actually.
one of my valuable traits is seeing the best in people, and then helping them, creating the circumstance for them to be their best versions. So I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think I'm selling myself too short by calling it cheerleading. That seems too passive of a role.
Or maybe you are the true definition of cheerleader and everybody else just is not there yet.
Yeah, this is maybe I am the future of cheerleading.
Yeah. See, I don't know if I typically classify as a cheerleader. I was the mascot, and we got dressed around the same area, so I'm pretty sure I'm gonna classify myself as a cheerleader unless there's some guy bigger than me that's gonna bully me, and then I'll say I was not a part of that at all.
So
Yep.
I'm that's I would say the downside of being a mascot is you have to keep your identity hidden, right? Did people know you were the mascot? Did you get the street cred that went with mascotting?
Um, well, the cutest girls knew who you were,
There
so,
you
I
go.
mean, there was that, but yes, as far as, like, yes, you try to keep your anonymity as much as possible, try to keep up the illusion that you are a horse.
I totally digress, but my sister was a mascot in college. She studies or she studied acting. So the big joke was this was her, first paid gig, and she went, and one time as she was mascotting, she did a cartwheel,
Cartwheel?
and the head came off.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so the whoever she was working with, dramatically, three of them ran onto the field and, like, put the hat back, and she was hiding in so nobody would see who she was.
Wait. Her head went below, like,
It fell off.
so
It, like, rolled away.
I know, but her human head,
Oh,
she went down
yeah,
inside.
like turtled.
So to the kids, it looked like a headless what was the mascot?
Oh gosh, I don't know, and now I feel horrible that I don't know, but I
Either way, the idea of a headless mascot with no human head underneath and the kids just like, I thought I knew, but there's no one in there.
yeah, this would be a day
That's
at Disney where all the kids are, their families are getting their money back for sure.
yes, absolutely. Okay, so where did the name Matchbox come from?
So, I will say, I hate naming things. I hate it. I hate it mostly because it's impossible to find domain names that connect to it. Um,
Including pets or just company stuff?
uh, so I hate naming things where you have to find the domain name. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
All
even
right.
name my plants. That's why I'm laughing. But
Oh, okay.
so Matchbox, the reason behind the name. Are you familiar with what a matchbox is?
Come on. What? What are you?
You asked me
Yes, I
what
know what a
meta meant, so
matchbox is.
I guess it's like pretty self-evident. It's a box of
It's good. I
matches.
didn't know what meta and inception. I know what a matchbox is. You take a match, psh,
Yeah.
psh, okay,
So when you do the psh, psh, or whatever noise you just made, and
okay,
you light something on fire, it's like a catalyst for something. So what we were finding in our events is that there were these moments in time of bringing people together who were collectively trying to solve the same problem or passionate about the same thing, and it was this like moment in time that was catalyzing all of these future interactions. So we heard stories of people who got hired out of our events, stories of people who a few would come together and decide that they were going to work on X together. We heard of, there was one that we did that was talking about, so it was a specific industry challenge around a knowledge transfer problem, because you had baby boomers who were retiring, millennials who were taking leadership positions, and because they were so far apart in generations, the typical mentor relationships were not forming, and so these millennials were coming in unprepared, basically. And so this event was like, hey, let's bring all generations together and better understand each other and talk through how we can do better communication. And so we heard stories of all sorts of programs, actually, that practical programs that emerged out of these conversations. So Matchbox, it's like lighting something. It sounds like a bad thing, lighting something on fire, but it's like starting a fire that heats things. It's a good fire. It's a contained fire. It's not a wildfire.
a lot of smoke in the air right now. Some
I
people
know
are not
it's not a
happy.
good time to talk about fire is a good thing.
Two things. One, finding a domain name. Did you name your company based off of the domain name that you could find?
So we knew it would be Matchbox. It was the virtual media part that took a little playing around with to make the domain. So our website, for those who are super eager to look us up,
Mhm.
matchboxvirtual.com.
Matchboxvirtual.com. Who had Matchbox.com?
Maybe Matchbox 20. Very relatedly, I'm campaigning very hard for them to play our Christmas party. So, Rob Thomas, if you're listening, I assume that he's a listener on your podcast, Adam. We would love for you to come play for us.
He's actually a guest next week on our show.
Perfect. I'm coming. I'm Zoom bombing in.
Yeah. We'll get you on the phone. No, I have no idea who Matchbox 20. Wait, I think I might have heard the. Here's the sad thing. I taught music for 10 years, and I've heard of Matchbox 20. I know they're in my era of millennialism,
Hmm.
but I still even what's one of their
3
songs?
a.m.
Yeah,
How far
no
we've
idea.
come. Push, I think. Is that one of.
How does How Far We've Come go?
I am not calling you. You're definitely gonna have to. That's actually kind of our motto song. If you look up how far we've come, but there's no way in hell I will be.
I was trying to get you to sing,
Nope.
but nope. By the way, what do you name your plants? That was actually the most fascinating thing to me. I was like, what'd she name her plants?
So we had two in the office back when we had an office, Polly and Sid. And so Polly and Sid, we were very concerned when COVID hit. We were calling the office the museum because it was just sort of deserted on the spot. So you'd walk in and it would creepily, like, everyone thought they were coming in the next day. So there's a spoon on one of the desks, and everyone was really concerned that Sid and Polly would meet their end. So, and I think only because we named them, to be honest, people cared enough to force me to go in and water them.
Oh, I actually also named my plants. Um,
What are yours
this
named?
is this is Zon.
Zon?
Yep.
That's a pretty cool name.
And this is Amma because I bought it on Amazon or Amazon. They're fake. They're fake.
Oh wow, you
Yep.
named fake plants. That's a
Okay.
I don't know what to say
We're
about
gonna
that,
we're gonna
man.
cut that part. Other than your job, what are you passionate about?
So it's all pretty connected. That is one thing I found about myself. I'm such an all or nothing person that I really tend to bring all my whole self into the work that I'm doing. If I'm passionate about the work I'm doing, I am passionate about people, and I'm passionate about community building. And so the fact that it has all happened online is almost incidental. That was just kind of the path that I ended up taking. But, for example, I love taking Ubers because it's so rare that you're going to have a one-on-one conversation with a stranger. I always make them talk to me. I love taking Ubers because it's so rare that you're going to have a one-on-one conversation with a stranger. Um, so
I always make them talk to me.
but so that is the core. They say so to bring it back to the business. You have people, you have skills, the skills, and you have the tools. And for me, if I had to remove two and keep one, it would be the people. And so that's pretty consistent with the things that I get excited about.
So where's the company based out of?
Montreal. So we
Montreal.
started and hired entirely in Montreal, and then since then, at this point, actually, we've hired in a few different countries, but we're technically based in Montreal.
What do you do for hobbies? Please tell me there's something more than just work for you.
Yes, I love team sports. So my favorite is beach volleyball. Not particularly good at it because I'm pretty short, but I talk a lot of smack, and that helps a lot, actually. Just get in their heads. My favorite move is to say, "Nice shorts," and the whole time they're like, "Was she sarcastic? Does she actually like my shorts?" And then boom, slam in their face. No, that's not.
Okay, so do you do the thing where you go up to the net and you're like, "Can you do this?" And then they put their hands through it and then you hit them in the face?
That we clearly need to coordinate because it sounds
Yeah,
like sounds like you're my kind of team player.
yeah. No, I was a camp counselor, and I could say that somebody taught me that by it happening to me. They're like, "You want to race to the top?" And they showed me, and I was like, "Yeah." And they started about halfway through, and they're like, "Bam!" And I was like, "Ah." Yeah.
I have many questions about your childhood now, but this.
A lot of people do. My psychiatrist really does. So, do you do underhand serve or overhand?
That's
It's okay if you
offensive. Obviously,
okay,
overhand.
overhand, obviously. I do like a running underhand. So I start way back there and I go and I run and it's pretty great, actually.
I
You
have
can
too
find it
much
on YouTube.
strength. If I did that, you wouldn't even see the ball. It would be so far away.
Okay, all right, okay. Don't need to exaggerate on this podcast, all right? Very serious here. Okay, so I think we found out a lot about your company. I think we found out a decent amount about you. You named plants. I think that's great. You're an amazing volleyball player, kind of a bully, actually. But as we end our podcast today, what advice do you have for our listeners? We have leaders of all kinds that listen to the podcast, and this we're just coming out of the pandemic, and so you kind of. I think you struck gold actually before because you had it all figured out, and then the pandemic. I actually would question if you had some stock in Pfizer because you predicted it. But anyways, what advice or encouragement do you have for all the leaders listening to you today?
So I guess, I'm staying on the theme of collective knowledge. I've had moments in time, especially with the growth in the last few years, where I've just had to tackle problems that were just so different than I have ever tackled before. And so one of the things that I do when that's the case, when I'm up against something like that, is I will go and get advice from at least 5 people who I really respect as thinkers. I'm very fortunate to have a lot of mentors in my life, and I have one main mentor, but several others that I will talk to, and I'm purposely trying to talk to people who think differently from each other, and so from the different pieces of advice, it's from the gathering perspectives, then it's about converging on what makes the most sense to do moving forward. But I found that to be unless the challenges are really, really different for people, I find it to be really effective to help make good decisions.
So do you face, because you're young, I mean, I say you're young, but you're not that much younger than me. I'm 34. You look much older than I do. But do you face sexism or ageism by people because you're such a young CEO?
Um, I I would say, one of the interesting things about the virtual, because my career has basically been made entirely virtually. Most of the people I communicate with are it's through video chat, and I found that to be a bit of an equalizer in some ways. And so, for example, and this sounds weird, it sounds like it wouldn't be a factor, but like I said, I'm pretty short. I'm eye level with anyone that I'm talking to on video chat, and that's just such a subtle difference. I mean, it's not even that subtle of a difference. I remember I had a boss who was 6'4", and he scared the crap out of me in person, and didn't virtually. It just felt a lot more balanced, I guess. And so I'm fortunate to work in a really, really positive sector. We work primarily with associations, which are nonprofits. As far as sexism goes, I mean, most of the associations, a lot of the leaders are female. And so people have their implicit biases, and that's going to be the case. I would say, and hard to detect, but I understand it. I would say, as far as I think in some ways that I've had a bit of an advantage being an unusual CEO. I think people look twice because of that, and I think it's a part of our story. My co-founders are not we age wise. The oldest co-founder is 60, so maybe 61 by now. So we're a team. So I haven't faced too many of those problems, and those are the reasons why.
Well, hey, it just says you have one, that co-founder must be really secure in themselves. Because I know if I'm talking to people uh, like in their early 20s, I'm just like, you know nothing. Um, but so that much more, that they must be very secure, must be a great employee or a great co-founder.
Absolutely. He every once in a while he'll get tired and accidentally fall asleep during, because he sleeps really weird hours, and he'll like sleep through a meeting, and I'll be like, "You're not helping ageism. Like, we're trying to fight ageism. Don't tell anyone you missed a meeting because you fell asleep."
He's like 5 years, and I can apply for Social Security.
Well, actually, I mean, this is a whole other conversation, but he has really found his passion in what we're doing. And I've known him my whole life, actually. And this is the first time that I've seen him actually genuinely excited about something. So that's been pretty cool. I think it pushed back any sort of retirement.
So you've known him a long time?
Mhm.
I mean, he must be thrilled when you're like, I've known you a long time, and this is the most I've never known you to be excited about anything except this. I did-
Well, he
Hey,
was a
wait a
tax
sec.
consultant before this, so yeah,
Snore.
it went without saying.
Well, Arianna, thank
Ariana.
you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And people can connect with you at virtual or matchboxvirtual.com.
Yes, sir. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. I am happy to talk to anybody.
Awesome. And your book will be called
How global domination Occurred through co-creation. I guess I should still keep it on point.
Sorry, that domain is taken. Try again. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's great. Well, thank you so much. Again, we will have Arianna's information below in the description below. So feel free to dig in. If you have a company, bring it to your CEO if you aren't the CEO and say, hey, I heard about this great company that we can do online virtual conference in. I think we should really try it, whether you're a principal or superintendent or any kind of leader. It really works, even past the pandemic. We really appreciate that we get to stay at home during these things. So thank you for your time, Arianna. And we will catch you leaders next time on the podcast, Leading Change.